Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Sports Shorts Daily. Ronnie Rantz, Tommy Krysan. The Super Bowl is set. We know who it's going to be, and we had a couple of good championship games came down to the wire on both AFC and the NFC. Seattle going to be a 4.5 point favorite against the New England Patriots in right outside of San Francisco, the home of the 49ers at Levi Stadium in 2 weeks. And Tommy, the frozen tundra was in full effect in Denver. The the Broncos covered. They were a 4.5 point dog when they went off. I think 3.5 or 4.5, depending on what you got.
Right.
Yeah. So Broncos end up covering if you went that route. But this is this is a tough one if you're a Broncos fan. You lose 10-7. Will Lutz misses a 44-yard field goal. He gets it tipped, gets blocked, but he misses the field goal, which he's been money and made so many clutch field goals this year, which would have tied it with 4 or 5 minutes to go. And you just wonder what woulda, coulda, shoulda if you'd have had Bo Nix.
Yeah, well, that question will linger, especially in Denver, for a long time. But, Ronnie, how about the weather? I mean, the team's warmed up in sunshine. Okay, it was cold, but the sun was out. And then in the first half, we can live with this. Second half, I mean, the announcers didn't know where the ball. They didn't know if it was the 32 or the 37. I mean, it was just crazy. And a lot of comments like, an AFC championship shouldn't just be decided in weather like this. Well, that's part of it. Denver earned the right to be home. They earned that right, and it was snowing on both sidelines last time I checked. So, throw that excuse out the window. It is what it is. And I think people sitting at home like me on your sofa and it's warm, you don't mind watching it. Like, hey, I'm glad I'm not there. I'm comfortable right now. So, but, the game went under, as many people talked about. We all talked about that on Sports Shorts Radio Saturday, that the under looked good. And I said, check the weather. And then, of course, the weather was a part of that. So, but hey, should have took that field goal earlier in the game. We went for it on the fourth down. I mean, you said this a couple of weeks back. When did the coaches stop saying, I want points? And then when you get to playoff games, you should really want points, okay? You want points. Get points on the board. I know the old thing, well, you kick field goals, don't score touchdowns, you end up losing. But that's good in September and October. But in the playoffs, when you can get points, get points. They knew the weather was going to be wacky. They knew going into the win in the second half was going to be difficult. You're going to basically take the passing game out of the picture. So that was a mistake that I guess, if you could get Sean Payton to be honest this morning, he would say, hey, I should have kicked that field goal.
This isn't something that I just said a couple of weeks ago. This is something I've been saying for a couple of years because
Right.
Brian Kelly, 3 years in a row, was the guy who didn't take the points, in the opening game of the year, and went for it. But you had a chance if you're Denver, Tommy, to go up 10-0. To me, I just didn't understand the rationale of why Sean Payton didn't take a chip shot field goal. And again, to go up 10-0 in the first half, it's not like it's late in the game and you got a question mark on whether we should go for touchdown or three. Are we going to get the ball back? Like, what? Again, just tack it on. Let's not be Nostradamus and know what's going to happen in the future or whatever. I mean, if you're Denver, you're up 10-0 in the first half. You got a great defense. They're on the road. The weather's coming in the second half. It didn't make any sense. And we're seeing it more and more and more. We're seeing it more and more and more. The analytics are saying go for it on fourth down. All of this, Tommy, started because of a high school coach in Arkansas, if we're being honest. There was a high school coach in Arkansas that, 15 years ago or whatever, it became the cool thing where he decided at, an Evangel Dunham type, lower level A, B, O, A or double A type level school in Arkansas, private school that dominated anyway. He decided we're never going to punt. And we're never going to not onside kick. Now, the rules were a little different with onside kicking and all that. And obviously in pro ball now, the onside kick is super almost impossible to get. But he said that we're never going to punt and we're never going to kick off. We're always going to onside kick. And this guy has did that, and they did it for years, and everybody was intrigued, and they did TV stories on it, and coaches made pilgrimages to his school and went and visited with him and watched film and talked to him. And all of a sudden, analytics started changing, and people started being more and more in college, and now it's in pro where they don't kick field goals anymore. They don't punt as much. They go for it all the time. And you live by the sword, die by the sword, Tommy. And we in playoffs in the last few years, and look at Detroit, I think it was last year, there are plenty of examples where this new world analytics is not necessarily the right thing to do. And that right there, Sean Payton not taking the field goal to go up 10-0 in the first half is a new world analytic. That would have never been the case 10 years ago.
Well, and the key there, the 10 points, it's 2 scores, you're up by now.
Right.
So you allow for that goofy play, the scoop and score, the punt return. You allow to have your cornerback blows a coverage. You allow that big mistake, okay, and still lead the game. So, and I think also what contributed to this was the tush push by the Philadelphia Eagles, because they were converting on 4th. Okay, albeit different story, but the analytics are saying they make it. And then so now other teams say, well, there's some variations of the tush push, but NFL teams, it's kind of like the major league hitter that says you can't beat me with a fastball. You might get me with a breaking ball, but I'm a major league hitter. I'm gonna get my foot down and hit it. Well, NFL teams think they can pick up a yard or two. Okay, you got the big linemen, they all weigh 340 pounds. They think they can pick up a yard or two. But the big story is, go up 2 scores, get points on the board. It's a playoff game. You're trying to punch a ticket to the Super Bowl. I think that's a decision that Sean Payton, if he could make it over, and you can't, would make it differently.
Yeah, definitely not there. But hey, great story though. Vrabel taking a team from 4 wins a year ago, back in the Super Bowl. Is this their 12th time, Tommy? I think they've been going to the Super Bowl. I mean, I'm a big fan of dynasties. I know people aren't. I love and I love this story in particular because, Robert Kraft and the New England Patriots. There was all this talk for the many years. Who was it? Was it Brady? Was it Belichick? And here is Kraft getting his due, right? His organization's getting his due. No Brady or Belichick on this team, but he went and hired a coach and brought his old Patriot back and Vrabel, who'd been on some Super Bowl teams before, and now here they are in the Super Bowl. They draft correctly. They take a great quarterback. There's a clip going around right now on social media, Tommy, from the before the 24 draft, which was the one that May went in, and it was John Gruden talking about May on how there was some discussion on who the Patriots should take and all that, and May and Gruden's like, May is going to be everything you want. He's going to be a superstar, blah 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 blah. And Gruden's talking good about May and how he should be the pick for the Patriots and everything. And obviously he proved he was right. And this is so I like that story. I like the organization that Belichick left and Brady left and spurned them, and they looked like they were done. And they had their moment. And all of a sudden, bam, they're back. And then same with the Seahawks, right? I mean, Pete Carroll's over in Las Vegas or was, and Seattle, with a cast off quarterback who. The Jets didn't want him, and the Vikings didn't believe in him per se, and now, they're in the Super Bowl. So, these are 2 teams that are very familiar with the Super Bowl. With the Seahawks now going to the Super Bowl multiple times, so it's going to be a great one. And I really like Seattle. I don't know if they cover or not. I like the money line on Seattle. I haven't decided yet. Do I think they cover? I think 4.5 is a lot of points in a Super Bowl, and I think the Patriots have a good offense and could come down to a field goal. Either way. But I really like Seattle in this one.
Well, it's a rematch of Super Bowl 49 when the Patriots beat the Seahawks. Brady had threw 4 touchdowns. Of course, the interception late in the game, downloaded, didn't give the ball to the running back. And, so it's a rematch of sorts, if you will, for that. But, this does, what happened in the 2015 Super Bowl doesn't really matter today. I don't believe there's anybody on either roster that was on the roster back then. But, I think I saw a couple of posts today on the computer. there's people in Seattle cheering for the Seahawks, people in New England and the Northeast cheering for Patriots. Everybody else is waiting for baseball season, whether that's LSU baseball or Major League Baseball or your favorite team. Everybody's waiting for baseball. But without a doubt, there'll be a lot of people watching the Super Bowl in 2 weeks.
Yeah, no, look, it'll be great, and a really cool, you know, moment. You know, the Seattle's quarterback went to the Super Bowl in where it is now, 10 years ago with his dad when he was 13 years old or whatever. You know, um, and to have 13 or 14, I think, and to 10 years later to be playing in the Super Bowl in that stadium where he went with his pop is a really cool thing. And now the hype machine will begin. 2 weeks of breaking down and analyzing this Super Bowl, and I myself really looking forward to it. I think it's a coin flip game, even though it's a 4.5 point spread. And I like Seattle. I really believe New England easily could go over there. This is good for Seattle. It gives them an opportunity to get healthy. They need it a little bit.
Well, before the line came out, I thought it'd be Seattle favored by 4, 5, or 6. That was my guess. So I kind of got that one right because they are a 4.5 point favorite. Over and under is 46.5. Weather should be fine in Santa Clara, right outside of San Francisco. So both teams went 14-3 in the regular season, and they made their way to the Super Bowl. I think once it gets here, it's a 5:30 kick. We all know that. It should be a heck of a football game.
So, look, credit Sam Darnold in that, last week there was some question marks on whether he would play and how healthy he would be.
Oblique,
and with
he had the oblique thing going.
Yeah, the Nussmeier injury. And then here he is, played arguably one of his best games of his career, threw for over 300 yards, multiple touchdowns. I love those stories. Nowadays, Darnold, who was drafted out of USC, nowadays, Tommy, we don't have any runway. We don't have any patience, especially if you're a first round pick or something like that, or supposed to be a franchise quarterback. Sam Darnold was expected to be the guy to come in and just fix, to be great right away. And one thing we've learned, quarterbacking usually doesn't work that way. It's a very rare thing that a guy is great right away, or even in year 1 or 2. It's the hardest position to play in sports, and it's one of those things that requires so much patience and knowledge and training and education, and you got to have the right pieces. You're only one of 11, and you got to have the right coordinator that understands your skill set and what you do best. And right, Sam Darnold was written off for the most part. He's a bust, and then you see what he did in Minnesota, and right. Now he's done in Seattle.
He won 14 games in Minnesota last year. 14. Same number that they won in Seattle this year. 14. 14-3. Wow.
But his last 2 games, he didn't play really well. It was awful. And Seattle, in Minnesota didn't believe enough in him to give him an extension and on a big contract. And Seattle did. And, Seattle's sort of that bounce back play. Geno Smith turned his career around over there. Donald's led him to a Super Bowl, so it's where you go to get fixed, I guess. But there's a lot of question marks on the Rams side too. The Rams had some decisions to make. Stafford played well. Stafford he threw for over 300 yards and had a chance at the end, the 4th down inside the 10-yard line and couldn't get it done. Give Seattle's defense a lot of credit. They did not have an open receiver. I don't think he did anything wrong. Maybe he could have stepped up in the pocket, bought a little time or something, running around a little bit. That's not his game. And Seattle's defense stepped up when it needed to. But that was a wild game. A little, it was the taunting penalty on Seattle in the second half. I thought was going to cost them, Tommy, when it looked like they were going to force them to punt, and then they had a taunting penalty on the very next play. They just gave them a first down. Very next play, they got a touchdown. So I thought, oh man, that's going to be one that's you're going to be hearing about or on the offseason if this game doesn't go Seattle's way. But there was a lot of mistakes both teams made, but at the end of the day, Seattle's defense was, did what it needed to do at the end.
Yeah, well, defense wins championships, and both of these teams play good defense. I'm like you. This is going to go down to a field goal one way or the other, or a critical mistake late in the game. But Carl Dunn threw up. I threw it up on the screen here. He said, "Man, it should only be 1 week till the Super Bowl," and that's been discussed every year, other than the year where there was 1 week because of the COVID or whatever it was. But I think the NFL wants the 2 weeks to ramp it up. The teams want to heal up a bumper or bruise. I think it is what it is. I don't think they're going to change that. Now, they talk about they go to the 18-game schedule, only have 2 preseason games, and you would still end up with the 2 weeks for the Super Bowl. So I don't think they'll change that. But you got 2 weeks to break it down. That's what the NFL wants. Sports Shorts Daily is going to mention the Super Bowl probably every show between now and then. That's what the NFL wants, is talk about us.
And for as a fan, yeah, sure, great. It'd be great if they played it next week. We didn't have to wait 2 weeks. But I totally get it. I totally understand. There's so much to a Super Bowl. It's not just a game. There's so many pieces. And you got people flying, that don't know if they're going to the Super Bowl, that find out, and there's a lot of logistics, and they don't. It's kind of one of those things where I get it. I understand why you need that 2 week ramp up. Yeah, it's great also for publicity, but there's so many other events and things and whatnot that are going on. All right, let's talk a little basketball for a minute. Give us an update on your Pelicans bet. You've been betting against the Pelicans every single game this year.
I've actually lost 3 in a row. I'm now 23-25. Pelicans were 11.5-point dogs last night to the Spurs and beat them 9 straight up.
On the road.
On the road, yeah. So the Pelicans are now 12-36 overall. I'm 23-25. I think I'll win tomorrow night as they're at Oklahoma City, who's a defending NBA champs and one of the best teams in the league. But I haven't seen a line on that yet. But I'm sticking in there with the Pelicans. I had that hot streak a couple of weeks ago. I need another one of those.
Also, LSU men's and women's basketball. The men continue their descent. 1-6 currently.
1-6 in league play. Lost to Arkansas on the road by 4. They covered but lost. And they'll host Mississippi State Wednesday night. Maybe a chance to get back on track there at the PMAC. And the women will actually play tonight. Yeah, they're going to host Florida. That game was changed from 7 o'clock to 6 o'clock because of the weather. By the way, the sun's out right now. Most places, Sacramento, most schools are closed today because of the anticipated weather. And as I look out the window at my house here, the sun is out right now. It's plenty chilly, but the sun is out. But the women who have won 4 straight in league play, they're 4-2, will host the Florida Gators tonight. 6 o'clock tip in the PMAC.
Yeah, 6 o'clock tip in the PMAC. I think I might actually go to that one, Tommy. Go check that one out. All right. We will be back on Wednesday for more Sports Shorts Daily. TK, where are you going to be on Wednesday?
I'll be over at Court Street Cafe. They are open today. They got limited staff. I talked to Jason yesterday afternoon. I'll be out there Wednesday, then we'll go back to Tremonti's on Friday. But Court Street Cafe is open, breakfast, lunch, dinner in Port Allen. Check it out, right over the bridge. No school today. Looking for a different place for lunch? Go to Court Street Cafe in Port Allen. You'll be glad you did.
All right, for Tommy Krysan, I'm Ronnie Rantz. We'll be back on Wednesday morning, give you an update on what's going on in the world of sports between now and then. And until then, everybody stay warm, and we will see you on Wednesday. Have a good one.